Welcome back, everyone. I'm going to be doing these videos now on Friday, or uploading them on Friday, because the currency rates will close at about noon Eastern. At least they're massively slowed down by then. Europe will be closed. BC or Western North America, doesn't matter. But Asia is definitely closed. So I will switch that up. That way the weekend edition, I'll try to keep that again under 15 minutes, and then that way we're kind of focused on where to move, etc. So stay tuned. Let's get through these currencies. Great British Pound. Apologies. I'm going to go through your stuff here quickly in a few minutes. Canadian sitting at 42.5. Yay. Check out yesterday's video. Lynn goes through sending some money, and also how to avail some of the savings programs if you have a Filipina wife or a Filipino husband, or if you're a Filipino couple, for all that matter. The threshold for Canadian is 40. I will explain that a little bit more detail soon. US, you're sitting at 54.9. Your threshold is at 50. Australian, your threshold is 37. You're sitting at 38 cents end. Euro, you finally got over 57. You're sitting at 58 cents end. And Great British Pound, you're over 66. I'll get into that shortly. And you're sitting at 67.5. Yeehaw! Great British Pound, let's get into your threshold. And for those of you who are following along with your currency and you're trying to figure out your threshold, I'm not saying that the numbers that I gave you are cast in stone, so you might want to set your own threshold. The longer the chart, the better. So here's the 10-year Great British Pound, and if you start from left to right, you'll notice that it was sitting at 67.07 is the mean there, and I drew a red line for 66, and as you can see on left, it bangs up against it, breaks to the bottom, breaks hard to the top, got all the way up to 75, comes back down again, waffles on that 66 mark, goes back up, comes back down, waffles, tests to the top, tests to the bottom, and then finally breaks to the bottom. Stays there for a while. My guess is that's probably close to a year. Comes back up, tests the 66 on whether it's going to break through. It goes above 66, but it keeps testing to the bottom side now, but it doesn't break below. Then it breaks hard up. Comes down, doesn't quite hit 66, but it's not too sure. And then it goes down, it tests 66 again, breaks up. Now you've got 3 points. You know that this is likely going to break to the bottom side. It does. It comes back up. It tests again at 66. You hold to that trend line, and it's likely going to break to the bottom again. COVID forced it, so it's not a true representation. Should it have broken down? Maybe, who knows. But again, the point is, now in the most current time frame, it is waffling along that 66 mark again, and it keeps breaking to the top side, but it just can't rally hard. And then it's tested to the bottom on that 66, rallied up, broke down, tested at 66 on the 1-year chart for a little bit, broke down below, and now it's come above. So it's just barely above. But let's say you're now got bulk money sitting in your native country, and you're getting down a little bit on funds, but you're okay for say another 6 months or whatever. Don't gamble. Forex can be traded daily and such, but this isn't what this is all about. This is about hitting a threshold and saying, this is where I need to be to have my living budget. Okay? So let's get into why bulk. In my opinion, the bulk money situation is simply this. I've had people say to me already, it's still going to average out to 40, Ken. The mean is sitting there at 40, so why are you doing this? Well, the problem is we're living on a budget. And if that budget, using the Canadian dollar and using my pension, if that budget breaks below then I'm living below my budget, okay? You're not able to save, so you're having to chew up savings. But if you've already sent bulk money to the tune of at least a year, then you are going to be able to ride through that and see another upturn. And in the meantime, through that whole time, you're saving your money in your host country, your native country, and then you're sending in bulk, okay? So use the example of the Canadian dollar. Mine is 40. I set the threshold at 40. If our currency did for almost a year, it was in that 38 to 36 range for almost a year. Let's say it's 36. Then I'm leaving 4,000 pesos for every $1,000 that I send. I'm leaving 4,000 pesos on the table every 2 weeks. Now, if I do that, then that's 8,000 pesos every 4 weeks, and my rent and my electrics is equivalent to that. If I'm not using the 40 threshold and I'm down at 36, great. Where am I going to come up with the money, right? So that's why you send bulk. You have to set a threshold of where you want your money. Now, the reason I set 40 is, again, you want the mean. So yes, it's going to average out, but because it's currency exchange, you have to do your averaging by holding your money in your native country, not by sending it there when it's low. And yes, it averages out. If you look back 10 years, yes, it averaged out. But how are you living within those months when it's low? Okay? You always want to bulk send your money and stick within your budget so that when you do have those lows, the excess will ride you through. Make sense? I hope so. How are you sending your money? Now, this takes a little bit of investigating. In the case of, say, Remitly, it's got a cap on it. It's below the money laundering cap. And this is where we're going to start touching on this whole money laundering thing. Find out what your money laundering level is for sending money abroad. In Canada, it's 4,500. That number holds true because even when I went to loan some money to my son to buy a truck, I had to prove where I got the funds from. Because I'm not working, I had to jump through hoops. How can you do this? Well, I'm self-funding my retirement. How can you prove that? So you have to go through a number of hoops. So find out what your money laundering level is. The problem with companies like Remitly is that they are designed for the OFW, the overseas foreign worker, who's going to send a monthly budget to their family. So it's a small amount of money. I believe in Canada that threshold is $1,000. That's basically just sending your pension every month or under your pension. Now, I don't know what the repeat is on it. I believe most of these things are bi-weekly, again, in Canada, so find out from your country. And this is why I think you need to find out who's doing remittance. In other words, they're working for a Philippine company in your native country to send money. Obviously, they're registered in Canada as well, and they're making sure they send below that threshold. It's important to understand where that threshold is and get that money sent in bulk. We talked about bulk. There's a reasoning behind bulk. And again, another reason to have programs like Signal and WhatsApp and stuff. And if you can find somebody like we have that works from home and you can do your bank-to-bank transfers, then you can transfer in your native country from your bank account because you're receiving your pension into your bank account, and then send that money over to the remittance officer, and then they will exchange and send it to you. Now, we've tested that number of times this year because we're building the house, and it works wonderfully. I have not heard anything that these companies don't operate in every country that we've run into, okay? There are OFWs in every country. In Canada, Western Union, monstrously expensive relative to the remittance. Okay, here we have iRemit and we have Metro Remit. Okay, So it's important to dial in on that. If you have to go to a Philippine restaurant, a Filipino market, or whatever, start to try and find out if somebody's sending from home, and just explain that you want to be able to send money to the Philippines for your retirement. Hence why I'm doing the weekend videos and getting yourself set up in the Philippines so that you can start operating this way. So be conscious of the money laundering. It's a real thing. There's a reason why you can only take X amount of money on the airplane, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Same with flying to the Philippines. If you're going to fly to the Philippines and you're going to take just a hair underneath that threshold of allowing to fly with, I believe it's 10,000 US for North America. I think it's still held at that level. So when you get there, is the currency rate in your favor? It might not be in your favor. Let's recap. Canadian dollar sitting at 42.5, threshold 40. US dollar 54.9, threshold 50. Australian dollar, threshold is 37. You're at 38 finally, send. Euro, you finally got above 57. You're at 58, send. And Great British Pound, you're at 66. Or sorry, your threshold is 66 and you're sitting at 67.5 this weekend. So send. A couple of you, now you can skip over this part if you want to. I'm going to recap the Canadian dollar. Now, yes, a number of you are right. The Canadian dollar should probably be around 39. The reason we picked 40 is we're sending in bulk. And as long as we have enough cash sitting in the Philippines to ride us through for that 1 year period, then I'm good to go. Okay, and we can then send bulk money to always be a year ahead. The ideal bounce around spot is 39, but the cycles of the Canadian dollar are such that if you can get ahead of yourself, then that means that you're going to be able to ride through those lows, and now you can really capitalize on that 40. And besides that, 40 to 1 is an easy translate. Right? 1,000 pesos is $25. So when I go shopping, it's an easy calculation in my head. But it also is quite repetitive at that 40 mark. Now, I'll repeat myself again too, that if we send at 40.5 and we've got extra cash and it goes down to 39.5 and we weren't able to send before it dipped below because of that money laundering thing, then sure, we'll send at 39.5 because, again, we're averaging 40. I don't want to do it too much. I would like to see all my money over 40. And that's why we go to the extent of registering bulk money, as we did when we first got back here. We went directly to the remittance office. We said, we need to send bulk money. What do you need to prove there's no money laundering here? And then we sent $80,000. Now, we are building a house, so a big caveat there, right? I took some of my retirement money and I sent it there so that we could buy land and build a house. We'd already bought the land. This was for the house. And a couple of other things that we want to do, but we'll get into that in other videos. But the main point is here, yes, you're right. The threshold for the Canadian probably is 39. But again, like I say, with the cycles, and this is why you want to tighten up on your currency a little bit. Australia, maybe yours is 36. I think 37, just like the Canadian. It's a nice little waffle spot, and you've got this fairly consistent cycle where if you can get ahead of yourself, get a year's worth of living money budgeted in the host country, anything above your budget, you have a second BDO or BPI bank account. Maybe even as separate banks, because I've never heard of any of them going broke, but you want to stay away from some of the smaller ones for obvious reasons. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video, where I'm going to talk very heavily about Cebu, the surrounding islands, and why that's the spot that you need to go to before you decide where you're going to settle down. Lots of expats in all of these communities. Cebu, why? Hospitalization. But from those adjacent islands, quick trip, in and out, you're done. Okay, talk to you again, guys. Later.